Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final Friday 15 of April. So Friday 15 is every Friday. We come together with some guest speakers, and I'm very, very excited about this week at 12 p.m. Central Time, and we answer your questions that you have all submitted. We have a really nice backlog of questions, but please continue to submit your questions. And you can go and submit them on hostagencyreviews.com. Oh, man. /Friday15. So that's hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. And you can submit your questions there. So this week we have a very special Friday 15, and hopefully we'll turn more into a Friday 20 because we want some extra time with this team. But I am really, really excited because this one's a little bit different. If you did miss our full moon email that went out last week, at HAR, we are celebrating Earth Month. And one of our hosts, Montecito Village Travel, who actually co-hosted our Friday 15 a few weeks back, introduced us to the incredible team at Cazavia. So before we jump into some special curated questions that focus on sustainability and responsible travel, and these questions are courtesy of our content and partnership manager, Jen, I would love to hand it over to Jill and Jermaine and the team to introduce yourselves and to tell us a little bit more about Cazavia's ethos. So Jill, I hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Shayna. First of all, we're thrilled to be here. Thanks for having us. I think one of the most exciting things that we love is the idea of conversation and bringing people together. And that in itself provides a lot of fuel for change when you have the connection to exchange your ideas. And as we were talking about earlier, the discovering the commonalities between us all and what that brings to the table in order to create change and sustainable change, and little bits of change make a big effect over time. So Jermaine, you can sort of tell the story of how we came together, because I think we're a living example of what we're talking about, what people can easily do in their own lives, in their own businesses.
Okay. So I think it was 2016, Jill and I met on a fam trip in Morocco. And there was one fabulous evening, and at that particular evening, neither of our plus ones actually decided to join us. So Jill and I ended up sitting alongside, I think, a pool of some sort. I can't even remember where we were, but we were sitting alongside a pool and we just got chatting, and a friendship was born. And then fast forward to COVID, and I remember at the time when I know just about every travel business in the world was totally decimated. I was doing a course on how to pivot, and I remember the professor saying, don't only look at what happens in your own country, look at what happens internationally and abroad. I happened to be in South Africa. I reached out to Jill at the time and I said, Jill, we've got to do something together. And Jill said, absolutely. I mean, we were devastated about our businesses having been decimated. And we started chatting, and right through COVID, in fact, it kept us going. We developed a business plan in terms of travel for women. But what really resonated with us, but really sort of hit home, was the fact that we were struggling so much, but there were so many other people struggling. And we were looking at predominantly at the macro industries. Being in South Africa, we have a lot of small industries that support tourism. And I couldn't help thinking, and neither of us couldn't help thinking about those poor women who made the crafts on the side of the road, who would have no tourists. And how would they support their families during this time? It was all very well for the world to shut down, but what would happen to those people and what happened to those families? And then I recalled a trip that I'd done, I think just the year before, in Venice. And I remember being so annoyed because I couldn't get to see the Duomo, because for want of 1 million tourists, and the line was just so long. And, I just had to leave Venice without that. And I came away feeling, I had those two things in my heart. And we were just talking about women's travel sustainability and how we as women can support support each other, support micro industry, support tourism going forward. And that's how it really started. Just around, it was conversation, it was around our own table. We just chatted COVID away, and Cazavia was born. So fast forward to 2025. Jill and I have been friends for 9 years. Cazavia has been going for almost 5 years. So fast forward to now, where we bring on Bella. So to take us to the next level. Jill, I'll just give back to you if I've left out anything on our story.
No, I think that in starting Cazavia, there was a true commitment to coming out of COVID and looking at tourism through a very different lens. Yeah. We knew that there would be some greenwashing coming out, and that people would want to make it look like they were making changes, but that it would take a great effort to actually see the change and be the change. And we were fully committed on that without, wavering from it. If it meant, not taking on business or possibly growing more slowly, it was the whole point of what we were doing. It was the whole point of slow travel. It was the whole point being the example for others to follow instead of following the others. And recently losing my house in the wildfires of Los Angeles, which urban conflagration and what happened in the chaos there, we knew that we are now very much living proof of the changes now. That is now what we need to do. And Jermaine and I realized that in order to keep, our name is, we're Cazavia Travel Architects. So architecture is based on a solid foundation and building a solid foundation. And we became very aware that in bringing in Bella, the next generation, we're handing this over to them. I mean, quite essentially, it's their problem, sadly, that they're going to be left with this. And so we can see the effects of this younger generation walking through our earth, and it's become very me-centric in putting themselves into every situation, bringing the Instagram moment into every situation. And yet the experience is lying by itself outside of that. And people aren't engaging exactly in how they should be engaging through the world. And I don't think it has to be one or the other. That's, I think, what people need to understand, is that it can be all of it together, but being more mindful in it and showing this younger generation, I certainly think they have a huge understanding. They're so in tune about what they have to lose, but in really understanding what they gain when they walk through the world, just sort of being a more mindful steward of it. Yeah. So, that was our next step, in building this. And, for those, travel agents out there that are looking and wondering, like, how do I do this? Or what am I doing? Or how do I change, let's say, someone's mindset in how they travel? There's such little ways in which you can do that. And I think, we spent 2 years in COVID just conversing and talking and building partnerships with DMCs around the world who align with our belief system and our core mission. And I think that's so important that trying to emphasize, we're in a global world, but we're trying to be in a micro experience within it, in that engaging on a smaller level, so the footprint isn't so big. And
sorry.
So Shayna, we're taking over here. So
yeah. And I also wanted to just add one point is about redefining luxury travel. I think that is so important. Luxury travel doesn't necessarily need to be the super yachts and the 5-6 star properties. It could be those hotels, but the hotels that subscribe to sustainability in terms of, by way of example, supporting a local community with the leftover food they might have. It's looking for. We spent a lot of time looking for partners that subscribe to our ethos and our value system, and we are truly uncompromising in terms of our value system. Because if we don't put a stake in the ground, nobody will. There won't be any follow through on that. So yes, we Jill Starr, when we started Cazavia, Jill said building a movement takes time, and you sort of hear that sort of cliche, but it's actually true. It's building a movement, and it's taken time, and it's been so fantastic all along. Yes, we take over.
You know what? I love it. We're definitely turning this Friday 15 into a Friday 20 at minimum. And I don't think our audience will have a problem with that because of the beautiful things that you and Jill have talked about. I mean, to me, that's worth spending more time listening to, and how you built this. And there's a word that we have in that I use in Hebrew, and it's called bashert. And anyone listening who knows that word, bashert, I think it was so bashert that you two came together. It effectively means meant to be. And I think for me, your story that makes that so incredibly clear. And then for me, this podcast is just one of many wonderful ways in which to let our audience know how you can go about doing it. That's not overwhelming, how you can get started. I think that's always such a difficult piece of the puzzle, is how I know that this is important and it's important to me, and how do I even start as an advisor. So I would love, actually, Jill kind of alluded a little bit to the first question, so I'd love to jump in, and we can start with we've got a few questions if that's all good with everyone. And so my first one is, how can travel advisors influence client decisions without being pushy? So, and especially when sustainability or responsible travel isn't already a priority of the traveler. How can we educate the traveler?
I can take that one, if that's okay. So I can give an example to anyone that is working mainstream travel, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we had a huge booking a couple of years ago, and I think that what people have to realize is that on the front of it, people might not want something, but you're orchestrating on the back end. So it's who you're working with in order to make the change. The people that are traveling, if they're insistent that they only want a certain product, they only want to do it a certain way or whatever, there's often likely maybe the inability to change that. However, who you work with in order to create the experience for them, it makes all the difference. And it brings the dollars back into the culture in which they're visiting, instead of them going through unaware of what they're doing. And so they're indirectly helping while they're not knowing that they're helping. So in case in point, we had this client go to Morocco, and it was $250,000 booking. And would we have possibly done it differently, and where they stayed and how they did it, whatever? Yeah, maybe, but that wasn't on the table for change. But we had been working with the DMC for 10 years, and the backbone of that DMC was probably the hardest working woman in Morocco. And we had given her our loyalty, our hearts, everything. So when she decided to go out on her own in a very patriarchal society that is based on reputability, and all of that, we knew we were bringing it to her, and indirectly bringing it launched her business. It helped her. It helped all the guides who we knew that followed her. It indirectly ended up helping Morocco earthquake survivors in the destruction that there followed soon after. So it's, I think, building for those building your relationships abroad, looking to find those. And that can also be through your host agency in their community, whatever community forums they have. Like Montecito has a great forum in which you can, share information between each other and say, like, who do you use in this place? And I would say that at all costs, use people boots on the ground. Not a U.S. Like, if I can, that's my 2 cents, bringing the business and the dollars straight into the country where that it will go further than maybe using, a U.S. representation or someone based in another country that happens to represent the country.
Yeah, I always talk about how keeping as much of the money local as possible, as much of the dollars that you're spending. It's actually when you talked about Jill, mentioning like who you're working with, we actually have a really good article for everyone listening that talks about supporting clients' sustainable travel and the green and the red flags to look out for, specifically with suppliers. And we list them out. So things that you should be looking for, maybe when you go to a supplier's website or suppliers that you're choosing to work with. Your hosts vet them quite heavily before they allow them into the network.
Yep.
Especially, I know Montecito and Virtuoso and
Yep.
all of them, but definitely a great article. We'll link it in the comments for you, but it gives you just to start out with the red and green flags to look out for with regards to sustainability. So I think that's wonderful, Jill. I'm going to move on to the second question if we're yeah,
definitely.
Wonderful. So I would love, this kind of leads, you gave a wonderful example. But I mean, Jermaine, if you have an example of how an advisor or yourself made a trip more meaningful or sustainable for the client, if there's any other examples you'd like to share.
Certainly we do. So one of the things that we do at Cazavia is we have the experience of women's travel. So over and above the normal travel that we would do, we have a women's group that we currently run once a year to a different destination where women can get to travel with us and travel the way we travel. So recently we had a group that went to, let me just backtrack a bit. We had a group that went to Botswana, which was a fantastic experience. We've got the most amazing destination management company that we work with called Wilderness, and they're brilliant. But what we decided to do was actually to go to another area that Wilderness operates in which was swallowing my words, which is Zimbabwe. And in Zimbabwe, what we did is we got hold of the property that we were staying at, and we asked them if we could visit a local school, just as because we were doing safaris, and we thought, what, something different the ladies might enjoy, which we did. We arranged a visit to a local school, which was magnificent. We got to meet with the local. They were high school children, and we interacted with them on a one-on-one basis. We took photographs, we posed, we did the most amazing things. It was a real cultural immersive experience. And then we went off to the local store and we bought books and pens and candy and dropped that off. But it left the most amazing feeling for all of us. Not only did we feel that we had contributed to something to them, but we gained so much from them, which was truly, I think that's meaningful, sustainable travel. It's not volunteerism. So we at Cazavia, I need to say, are really against volunteerism. Totally is probably a bit strong, but we're against volunteerism. We believe that you go into a community, don't just pick up a baby, hold them, and move on, because I think you leave so much. Leave the community in a worse situation than when you arrived. But if you could just immerse yourself with the local people, and if it's on your heart to continue. I know one of the ladies that was on the trip with us, I think, continued to support the community in her way. There was a fire recently and one young girl lost everything. And we were able to, this particular lady was able to provide a school uniform for her going forward, which meant so much. So it's those type of things that we really try, whenever we go into a destination, we try and think beyond the travel, but we try and get them to experience what is culturally available.
Yeah, I've always called that real. It's very real travel, but I love the word that you used in particular, that it's meaningful. And typically any of those, and I mean, I've traveled the world. I've been to Botswana and Zimbabwe as well, which I can't even express in words how incredible it was. But those are the moments they're going to remember. The safaris, sure. Those are the moments that they're going to remember. And those are the first ones that they're going to come back talking about, something they didn't know that they wanted, that they needed while they were there. And I think that is so special. And I'm going to do a bit of a shameless plug right now, because we had the team at Tourism Cares. So for the audience, I don't know if you know, I sit on the board of directors for Tourism Cares that focuses on sustainable and meaningful travel. And we just partnered with them for another blog post around how that can actually grow your business and impact within the industry. So we'll link that as well. But Jermaine, I love that you used the word meaningful. I think is perfection in this regard. So I love that. All right, we're turning this into a Friday 25 because I got to ask one more question.
We're a little long-winded, as you can tell. We're very passionate about this. It excites us.
Very passionate.
It's not long-winded when it's such great information. So, I have been known to potentially cut people off if something's going too long, so we get to the next one. There is no moment in time where I would ever want to do that here, because I love what you're sharing. And I think it's so wonderful for our audience to learn and to hear, especially for all of those that are listening that are newer to the industry. This is great to start to build that from the ground up when you're just starting, and build that into the ethos of your brand and your business. What Jill and Jermaine here are doing and what Bella has now gotten involved in, which I think is amazing. Okay, so final question. And please, whoever would love to take it. But what role do travel advisors play in supporting local communities and economies through the trips that they plan?
Should give you that straw. Who's taking the straw?
I'll start and then you continue, because that question filters. I think we've answered it in the two previous questions, Shayna. In terms of supporting organizations that actually support communities and that support sustainability. And sustainability, and we see sustainability in terms of cultural, social, so there's quite a few areas of sustainability, and we support those organizations. Jill, I don't know if you want to go into detail in terms.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I agree. I think we have 100% responsibility. I think that there's no slacking here. It's, if we're looking to be interconnected, we need to engage and take responsibility for our actions. And those actions are finding people who either need the help, who align with our vision, who want to look forward in a better way. And, being recently sort of having to reframe my own life and being what I used to think was the face of charity, and being that charity now, and all of a sudden needing help where I never thought that would be me. I really had to refocus that. We're talking about refocusing the lens. And so now I realize when I would say that, it was almost embarrassing to think that I might need charity after this apocalyptic event that happened to us. And so it connected me even more to realize what the responsibility is outward, and how we look towards our, the industries that we look to travel through, cultures who we want to experience, people who we want to do business with. And I think that in looking at helping is a communal act, and it's not something that we have to do, but a gift goes so far. And so when we uplift people and align with people elsewhere, then we all come together and reap the benefit of that mutual relationship. So I think we have 100% responsibility in what we're doing and how we're connecting with others in the world.
I agree to educate our clients who are traveling, I think is absolutely on all of us as, travel advisors, for sure. Another resource that we have that completely aligns with everything that you've all said is we have an article kind of on 5 simple ways travel agencies can support sustainable travel. And there's a checklist kind of how you can get started. Again, a lot of our listeners are new to the industry. And so it's a great way of how you can get started, a very simple checklist. And then you can start to incorporate a lot of what Jill and Jermaine have said here today. Thank you. This was my favorite Friday 25. And there's been more than one Friday 25, I tell you now. But honestly, we have such a global team here. Jermaine's joining us from South Africa. Jill's joining us from Mexico. Bella's joining us from the US. I am across the border up in Canada. So we've got a whole mixture on this Friday 15. Thank you to everyone listening. We will also link Har's profile from Montecito Village Travel, so you can check out the host agency that Cazavia is a member of. If you have any questions for them, you can reach out to them directly through the profile. I cannot thank you enough for joining us for a special episode of our Friday 15. I am going to end. We're going to end the call now, but or the podcast now. But please don't leave me, because I have a lot more questions for you personally. And if anyone wants more Friday 15s like this, or wants to learn more about sustainable travel, please let us know. We would love to continue educating you all on sustainable, responsible, and meaningful travel, and how you can help your clients. So thank you again for joining us.
Us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having
Bye,
us.
everyone.
Honored to be here.